family and friends bid farewell to late City of Johannesburg Mayor Jolidee Matongo. Matongo has been described as a loving family man, an outstanding and trusted friend. To talk more on this now, I'm joined by reporter Tshegohaco Moagi, who was at the funeral earlier. Now, Tshegohaco, for you, this has been something, very, I would say emotional, because you spent his last day, his would-be last day now, on the campaign trail and followed the story right up until his funeral today. Talk to us about the emotions that have been at play since we learned of his passing up until today.
Well, good evening, Bongi. So it really, it has been a very emotional time for the journalists that spent time with him on that day, on Saturday last week, for those that are his friends, and they described him, as you said, they described him as an outstanding friend. They really said that he was trustworthy. They knew that they were able to go to him and say something and it would not leave his lips. And as emotional as it had gotten, it was beautiful to hear people pay tribute to Jolidee Matongo. I think the interesting and the most emotional part for me was seeing when the wreath-laying ceremony actually happened this week, where you see the wife, you could tell that she was trying to be very strong at that point, where they laid wreaths at the very point where he took his last breath. And that was very emotional for me, because there was a point where they actually laid flowers and red roses on the trail of where he had actually died, from the car to where he had actually taken his very last breath. So, and then today, of course, then hearing her cry so deeply, you could tell that she really lost someone that she loved a lot, and lost a friend. And even in her tribute, as her tribute was being read, hearing her cry really was difficult for all of us in the room, because you can just imagine the pain that she's going through. And it's also the shock of how he died, the absolute disbelief of how he died. We were with him on Saturday, and hours later we are hearing that he's now passed away. So just hearing his friends today really describe the type of person that Jolidee was, and how he was so dedicated to the city of Johannesburg. It was beautiful to hear, as emotional as it had gotten throughout the week.
And talking about the wife, one of the things that I really loved about their story was just, I must say, this was the humor part for me, when she spoke about how he followed her to choir practice, and this was just for him to, catch a glimpse of her time and time again. It really goes to show that for them, this was not a mayor. This was somebody who was a father to, the son, and also a husband to her, and someone that she really is going to miss deeply.
Absolutely. And I think with such huge funerals where we are paying tribute to people like the mayor of Johannesburg, we often tend to forget that he actually had a life outside, serving for the people of Johannesburg, and also serving the ANC. We tend to forget that there's a life outside of that. And it's something that, Bongi, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because the family had actually requested during the memorial service that as soon as his body arrives yesterday evening, they had requested for there to be peace. So they requested for everyone to please leave, so that they can spend some time with him and do what they need to do as a family. So it was really nice to hear her saying that it must have been quite agonizing for him to be sitting through these choir practices just so that he could see her. But it was really nice to also hear how she says something so simple, Bongi, that I'll miss your smile. Not being able to see the person that you love smile once more. And it was beautiful to hear the tribute that she paid to him, and how she described him as a person that was a very unique breed.
And the one thing that also stood out was just not him being a unique breed at home, but also with his comrades, because we saw even one of them, Dada Murero, in fact, breaking down even before speaking, because for him, it was just so difficult to articulate his loss. But he wasn't the only one, because we saw Jacob Kawe as well, and we've been seeing others in the week talking about this role that he played, not only within the ANC and the city of Joburg to try and revive the economy, but at the same time to be a good friend to them.
That is true. We now know that there were 4 of them in the group. It was Brian Maruping, it was Jacob Kawe, and it was Dada Morero. And now they say that now it's just the three of them that are now left. But they also spoke so fondly of him. I mean, one of the three of them saying that they learned so much from him, you know, and they also spoke about his love for education, something that very few of us would actually know about Jolidee Matongo, and his love for education. And they really spoke about the unique friendship that they had. They said that they were able to go to Jolidee at any moment, and he would give them some kind of amazing advice. And this is something that we've heard from all his friends. I mean, I had spoken to Lebogang Maile, the MEC of Kokta and Gauteng, and he also said something along those lines. You know, he was like, Dada was a very reliable person. My apologies, Jolidee was a very reliable person, and you knew that you were able to call on him at any time. And the way that they just really spoke about how they will miss the friendship that they had, they will miss the laughs that they had. One of the friends, I think it was Jacob Kawe, saying that he still doesn't believe it. And I think this is the thing for many people in the city of Johannesburg, being in complete disbelief. He says he has seen him through so many milestones in his life. He has watched him fall in love. He has watched him, you know, be scared to actually ask Auskidibone out. He has watched him get married. And he says on the 18th of September, he watched his friend sit in that car, lifeless, and he called out to him and he said, Jolly Vuga, and he just was not, and he knew that this was then the end. And he said he will definitely miss the times that he was able to call on him at any time and say, I need this, or I need advice on this. And they knew that the advice that they would get would be the right thing to do.
I'd like us, Tshegohaco, just to listen to what Brian had to say, you know, just at the back of what you are painting for us, because this is a very solid friendship that spans over a few years.
To Comrade Dada, I felt weak. I didn't feel strong at all. I cried, and I said it can't be. Dada's voice and message still resonate in my mind. At the scene of the incident, I felt and I saw anger, grief, pain, sorrow. People were hurt. Your departure only brought helplessness, tears, absence of leadership. I've never seen my two friends so hurt, especially Dada. It hurts, my friend. Kawa said, we shouldn't have made you a mayor. We'll be with you today. But God, that you long serve, chose you to serve his people. Since we knew each other in 1988, you have been a devoted Christian. I remember one day you took us to church in Alexandra. But I'm not empowered to ask God's intention and decision.
I'm still railing in shock. I have had more whys than hows. Why him? Why now? Why so sudden? Why so tragic? It's such events which really makes one question God's will. Is everything really an architect of God's hands? And I would like to repeat it. Is everything really an architect of God's hand? Dear friends, comrades, family, the people of Johannesburg, I do not think we yet understand the magnitude of what death has robbed us of. It has robbed us of a man rooted in people, a kind man who embodied humility and humanity, a unifier, a peacemaker, a hard and dedicated worker, a servant, a brother, a father, a husband, and an uncle, a confidant, a friend, a disciplined member of the African National Congress.
And so as we round up our conversation, what then are the promises that are being made by those that worked with him to ensure that they carry forward his legacy in the city of Johannesburg?
Well, they are saying that they'll definitely ensure that his legacy is carried forward. They'll ensure that the residents of the city of Johannesburg continue to receive the services that they need, despite there not being a mayor. We do know that we are going to the local government elections soon. So at the moment, we understand that because it has been a week of grieving for the city of Johannesburg and the city council, they aren't yet sure what the way forward will be, whether they will actually elect someone to stand in before the local government elections. But at the moment, the city manager is definitely holding the fort together with the council, the Speaker of Council.
All right, that was our reporter Tshegohaco Moagi, who was at the funeral earlier and has really been tracking the story from the time when the late mayor was campaigning with the president in Soweto, and then to the accident scene as well as the memorial, and now today she covered the funeral.